good morning, and welcome to Root of the Matter. Today is July 7th, 2020, and there's a whole lot, as Jerry Lee Lewis said, a whole lot of shaking going on in the earth. A whole lot of shaking going on, but not his type of shakiness. Either way, we're glad that you're here. Send this to your friends, like, subscribe. Um, for the moment, it's so that the word can get out. I'm not getting paid for this at this time. I just want to share a word. And so we thank you for joining in. Just give me a few minutes of your time, and I promise we'll be done. Hosea 4 and 6 says that my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will reject you. And this knowledge is not the acquisition of information, it's the actual ascertaining of revelation of God's holy writ, His truth, His word. And understanding that, as His word says, in all of your getting, wisdom is the principal thing, Proverbs 4. Therefore get wisdom, but with all of your getting, get understanding. I want to talk about 3 or 4 things today that I feel are pertinent. We have concluded our 21 days of repentance, and I will share that in a later vlog of the outcome of that, because it's paramount to what's going on in my life as well as hopefully in yours. But I want to talk about several things, and the first thing I wanted to address today, this day, is voices. Voices. We are creatures that use voice, and we are creatures that receive voice. What do I mean by that? Well, God is the Word. The Bible says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He spoke the world into existence with His Word. And so we are hearing voices, and that does not make you schizophrenic. It doesn't make you delusional. It just makes you know that voices are a part of our world and are continuing to be magnified and multiplied in our lives, even in this day and time. Voices. I'm hearing voices. You're hearing voices. It's not the voices that we hear, it's which voice, which dominant voice. And it's really not hard to conceive or to believe. There's many things that are happening right now that are being amplified by voice. For instance, you're listening to my voice. When you turn on the evening news, that's a voice. When you go watch a movie, that is a voice. And as I said in the previous vlog, that the voice is an agenda. Do not be deceived that everyone has an agenda, even Hollywood. Even if they make a movie, especially nowadays, they have to put their voice in it and don't stick to the facts. Here's one caveat. We was watching, or my wife was watching the movie, I believe on, who was it? What was her name? Madam C.J. Walker. It was a document. It was not a documentary. It was a Netflix series, I think. And I watched a little bit of it. I don't get into watching, if I want to know about a historical character, I don't necessarily get into the movie for facts. If I watch it, it's entertainment. The movie that came out about Ray Charles, that was entertainment. If I want to know about it, I'll study it, I'll read it, I'll go to other sources, because Hollywood's objective, other than making money, is entertainment. And there's always some voice in there, especially nowadays, to put forth an agenda. But getting back to voices, we all hear voices, and there's voices in our lives. For instance, right now, there's waves going on, all kinds of electromagnetic waves. There are mechanical waves. There are ultraviolet waves. There are microwaves, radio waves, all kind of waves being present at this time that have a dramatic influence upon the earth and upon us as a people, knowingly, and most of the time unknowingly. Subconsciously, we are actually absorbing, and these waves have an effect upon us. Sometimes you don't know until years later. Unfortunately, some of the waves are deleterious to us, and some of them are maybe beneficial to us. But nevertheless, they are evident, but we don't see them. They're working undercover. They're working in the not known world, in the invisible world. And the invisible world, or the intangibles, are more important in your life and mine than the tangible lives. So the same thing with voices. Voices are going on all the time. It's not the question of the voice, it's a question of which dominant voice are you listening to? Which dominant voice? Which dominant voice? What is the dominant voice in your life? What is the voice that occupies your time, your space? What is the voice that you're listening to? Your voice, perhaps. It's your voice that you're listening to. Or maybe it's a voice that's been amplified by another voice. There are voices, amen, that are speaking. You know, or here's a hint to which dominant voice is, which is your dominant voice. It's the voice that you're feeding. It's the voice that you're feeding. It's the self that you're feeding, or the spirit that you're feeding, however you want to categorize it. If you are listening, actually, the dominant voice is the voice that is being fed the most. If it's being fed with negativity, then there is a negative dominant voice in your life. If it's being fed with positive attributes, then there is a positive voice in your life. Which voice are you listening to? There's only about 7 or 8 portals to the human soul or psyche, or to the physiological makeup of who we are. There's only about 7 or 8, depending upon who you are and what type of category you want to put us in. Or there's our eyes, that's a portal. There's the ears, there's the nose, there's the mouth, there's the skin. Okay? And most of us have at least 5 of those. Women have an extra portal, and I believe you can figure that out, the entrance or the entryway to the soul or psyche, or even to the physical makeup of who we are. I was thinking about that this morning, how women are unique, and man, they not only have an entryway, but also an exit way, which bears life. And there's another portal that actually enters into the person of who you are, which portal is really irrelevant as much as what is entering into your portal. You are, as the old saying, what you eat. What you eat. It becomes who you are. What you listen to, what you look at, what you put upon your skin, what you allow to enter in you becomes a part of you. What you allow to enter into you becomes a part of you. Jesus said it's not so much what enters in you that really corrupts you, but what comes out of you. But it does have to enter in. And once it enters in, it gestates. Like a seed coming into the womb, it gestates. And then when it comes out, then that is the makeup of whatever the product which was placed in you. But you have to do 2 or 3 things. You have to do what the book of Proverbs said. Gird up the loins. Book of, who was it? I think it's 1 Peter. Gird up the loins of your mind. You have to guard your mind. And then Proverbs says that keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. So you have to guard your mind. You have to gird up your mind. In other words, just don't allow anything to come out. And you have to guard your heart. Guard your heart. Voices. Who's the dominant voice in your life? The dominant voice is going to control your actions. The dominant voice in many of the people, and my next topic is that are in the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, is negativity. And I want to speak on that because our young and well as some old are being entranced and being hypnotized by this false movement. It's a false movement. It's a movement that is deleterious to us as a people, black people. I believe at best the Black Lives Matter movement is a passionate group of individuals who are misguided in their objectivity, misguided in their direction because many of the goals have been misappropriated and have been hijacked by other entities and groups stronger than they. with an ulterior motive. At best, at the best light, it is a group of passionate individuals who are misguided. But the reality is, it is a hate group which has been utilizing the powers of the system to deter us and to destroy the fabric and the foundation of who we are. It to destroy the fabric and the foundation of who we are, not only as a black people, but as a nation, as a people, and also as a body of just humanity for their own agenda. The sad part in our behalf is that we don't understand that. And sometimes they even tell us. They even tell you on their mission statement, if it's still up on their webpage, on their what they're about. They're about tearing down the foundation. I believe the book of Proverbs, the 11th chapter and the 3rd verse, read this morning, said, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? We have the foundations of marriage, the foundations of family. The foundations of marriage is what they would like to tear down. Of traditional marriage, the foundations of family, traditional family. Right now they're tearing down foundations and they're tearing down statues. And this again is the misguided agenda. What does statues have to do with propelling us as a people? Well, you might say, well, it has a lot to do. It's a remnant of the past, and we want to tear down that past. It has nothing to do with propelling us as a people. At best, it has something to do with giving you a good feeling. And most of the movement is generated by feeling, by heart. I said at one point that we ought to not be generated by the feeling, but we ought to be generated by our head, not our heart, by our head plan with a strategy. As evident of the protest, you can obviously see that the protest was hijacked by groups who had other agendas. There was many groups that were out there just because it was the thing to do. There was many individuals out there just because they wanted to exercise destruction. And then there were other groups who were strategically out there. And these things, and that's what I said, this movement is coupled with, as the Bible calls, wickedness in high places. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, against principalities, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This group has partnered itself with wicked institutions, wicked individuals who seek for the demise of our people. And I'm not asking you to agree with me about that. That's not conjecture. That's not even, that's just the fact. That's just the truth. Actually, that's what I was trying to get to. It's the truth. It's the truth. You shall know the truth. The truth shall set you free. Understand this. Black Lives Matter movement is one of the most notorious hate groups on the face of this planet, and they've partnered themselves. Actually, they're the face of a more sinister group, which is seeking for the destruction of us as a people and also for the races of the people here. Matter of fact, the instigation of the statues being torn down is not necessarily to be a symbolic gesture. It's inciting hate. It's now trying to incite hate among those who have ties possibly to these statues and those who actually see this as an injustice. The Black Lives Matter movement is, at best, I said, narrowly trying to fight. What does police brutality have to do? And I'm going to talk about that with the real hard issues of us as a people. There are more evident issues for us to deal with. And if you don't see that, then you're being blindsided. You're hearing, you're taking in, you're listening to the voices that are dominating your spirit. If you would open your eyes and see things as they really are, you will see that this group has not our best interest. I don't care what the word black, it's not black at all. There's no black in them except for some of the things and the people that are in the organization. It's a destruction of the foundation. And until you recognize that, or until we recognize that, and we as a people unite ourselves, the Black Lives Movement is not a movement that is new to us as a people. And I'm talking to the black people. It's not new to us. Every movement for forward progression through these United States, through the government, has been met with obstruction, has been met with interference. When the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments was written for us as a people, that movement was hijacked by those who oppressed us. It was hijacked by the Supreme Court. It was hijacked by a movement in the early 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, when we were moving for equal rights and we were moving for progression in the 60s. That movement was hijacked. And we went on for a movement for our people. Then it became a movement of integration, and then it became a movement of everybody. And now it was just not our people who was in plight, but now everybody. There was a new term that was put on the forefront in the late 60s, that now it's not about black people, it's about minorities. And now we are faced with another movement, and the same old thing, and the same old cycle is going on. And if I allow this movement to hijack us in this forward progression, there's a reason why the Black Lives Matter movement is on the pedestal and the forefront, perpetrating us as a people. They have not perpetrating us and our ideology. And they've always used a small group or people to sort of sabotage everything that we have been trying to do and pit us against one another. We're not being pitted against one another when we come against Black Lives Movement, because they're not our movement. This is not our movement. The foundation is not our movement. The backing is not our movement. Look at the major heads and who is actually who's fueling this movement. It has nothing to do with black people, police brutality. It has nothing to do with our cause as far as what we're trying to address. We have economic issues. We have education issues. We have justice system issues. We have personal issues in our own communities, as was demonstrated about a week or so ago in Chicago. The people on the streets was outrageous. I was so glad to see the community leaders coming together. They said, where is the Black Lives Movement now when these young children who were killed in a violent outrage, where 40 or some people were actually shot? Where's the Black Lives Matter now? Where's the Black Lives Matter movement when it comes to the topic of abortion? Why? Because they don't care about that. Because their movement doesn't care about us. I'm not talking about you, okay? You that are aligning yourself with this sensational. Please don't get it wrong. I'm talking about the movement. I'm talking about the movement. And it's deleterious, it's destructive, it has no point of actually celebrating. It's aligning itself with other movements. It's aligning itself with other systems, other practices. Will you consider that for just one moment? Look at the facts. What does tearing down a statue have anything to do but inciting anger in our people? What kind of benefit is that going to give to us as a people? Who benefits from that? Follow the money train. Who actually benefits from that? Allowing us to draw upon a street because we want to feel good? Who benefits from that? Got to get off the feeling train and get on the fact train. Get off the feelings. Get off the facts. Get off the dilapidated donkey that we're riding on and get on the facts. Get on the facts. I'm not talking about political. Please don't turn it off. That's another issue for another thing. We've got major issues in our life. I'll just read a few of them. We got issues. We got issues in our communities. No one wants to talk about it. We are the last in most of these areas. We are the first in most of the diseases that happen. No one wants to talk about that. Everyone's talking about the coronavirus. Everyone's talking about how it's destroying lives. But no one wants to address that diabetes and heart attacks and many of these other maladies that are in the black community are destroying more lives. No one wants to talk about the fact that we are the first. Dr. Claude Anderson quoted that when white folks catch a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. That when it affects the masses, that we are affected more. No one wants to address those issues of health. I mean, on a mass level. But no, we want to talk about a police beating a young man. As bad as that is, as horrible as that is. And I agree with the outrage. But I don't agree that this is the major thing in our community that we need to solve. I asked someone, I said, why do they beat us? Someone said, why the police beating black folks? Why? Because we have no power structure. We have no power structure. It's been said before, all they know we're going to do, protest in the street, tear down a statue. And come up with some stupid law that we did not, I'm going to share with, we did not come with. This absurd law of defunding the police. How absurd is that? The same police that you need to protect your neighborhoods like in Chicago. How absurd is that? That's totally absurd. We're listening to the master telling us, or we're listening to the fox telling us how to get out of the chicken coop. We're listening to the fox telling us how to get out of the chicken coop. We're listening to the fox, that wily fox called the leftist agenda, telling us how to get off the slave plantation. And they are not your friends. We have many health maladies. I did a study a while ago. It's called Wake Up. And there were several topics in the black community that we needed to address. Not only in the black community, just in the community. No one's talking about the great disease in our world today, besides the things that are killing us. Sexually transmitted diseases. Matter of fact, we've gotten politically correct with that. We don't want to call it a sexual transmitted disease lest we offend somebody. It's now sexually transmitted infections. 134,000 new cases of syphilis occurring each year. The highest rate of infection in 40 years. 1.3 million cases of gonorrhea occur annually. AIDS is the leading killer of Americans between 25 and 44. Now, I did this some years ago. The statistics might have changed. I'm not certain. But it can't be far from the truth. Blacks, who represent 12% of the U.S. population, accounted for about 71% of reported gonorrhea cases and almost half of all the chlamydia and syphilis cases in 2008. This is 2008. But I'm certain that it couldn't be too far from this truth now. As I said before, as Dr. Claude Anderson said, when white folks catch a cold, black folks catch a pneumonia. If you see there's a syphilis case, you can guarantee that it's much worse for various reasons in the black community. Overall, the CDC, yes, that same organization that's making us wear masks, and I'm not against masks, I'm just telling you that's what they're doing, estimates that 19 million sexually transmitted infections occur each year. Almost half among 15 and 24. Our young folks, you young folks, we've been allowing you to believe that sex is just a plaything that you can do, that you can just go ahead and have free sex with anything, any person you want, any gender you want, and not suffer the consequences. Sex is a powerful communication. And that's why God meant it for one man and one woman. And that's why God meant it to be a lifetime. Anytime you engage in it outside of those bounds, then you open up a door, a Pandora's box of destruction. And I'm not going to go on to this because the list can go on. Many of these things you already know. Our justice system, there are more African Americans under the correctional system today, in prison and jail, on probation and parole. There are more African Americans in jail, in prison, on probation and parole than were enslaved in 1850, a decade before the Civil War began. Now that's a justice system we really need to actually address, and it is not the policeman's fault. It's a system. You have to go above the edge. You have to fight, but you have to have something to fight with. And I'm not talking about guns, but I am talking about power. As of 2004, more African American men were disenfranchised due to felon and disenfranchisement laws. A great book is The New Jim Crow. If you haven't read that book, look for it on YouTube. It talks about what actually happened after Jim Crow. Yeah, the justice system is now the new Jim Crow that's imprisoned a lot of black males and destroying black males' life. You've heard of the prison pipeline? It is very true. Due to the felon and disenfranchisement law, that in 1870, the year that the 15th Amendment was ratified. Another book for your enjoyment, your pleasure. Read at your own leisure. It's a book called Freakonomics. It's a book that talks about the actual economics. Powerful Books talks about why. It talks about everything from names to why crime actually did fail. It talks about the actual advent of crack and how that came into being. And if it's not a, people want to write it all, it's not a conspiracy theory. This came in purposely to destroy the black community. Amen. Just like a lot of other things that are coming in. In 1860, 90% in Freakonomics, the book says in 1860, 98% of all blacks in America worked for white people. In 1860, 98% of all black Americans worked for white people. In 2001, 98% of all black Americans still work for white people. 67% of all crimes in America is against blacks. I may put it down at the link below. It was somewhere, I believe it was in Milwaukee or somewhere back east. Maybe it was Boston, about 2006 or something. You might have saw the video of the police chief who was being questioned by reporters, and he was very passionate. He was saying that we are upset that the police actually brutalized this young person, and he was the first one to say that he would be against that, and he would not tolerate that. He said, "But why are we not screaming about these young children that just got killed?" He was on his way. If I'll put it down in the link up below for you to review, because he was actually adamant. His heart was perplexed. How did we get so upset with the life of this thing that happens? And it does happen. It ought to be addressed, but it's not the main thing. These are the main things, and I'll talk about one other product, and it's close to my heart because it's close to God's heart, and it ought to be close to yours if you're a black person. If you're a black person, it's the largest genocide in America, larger than Rwanda, larger than the genocide in the Congo, larger than the genocide that happened in China, larger than any genocide. It's the American Holocaust. In America today, almost as many as African American children are aborted as are born. In other words, we're not even replacing ourselves. The abortion numbers have gone down over the few years, but there are reasons for that, which I'll get into at another discussion. And it has nothing to do with the actual slow rate of abortion or even the great work that the pro-life people are doing. A black baby is 3 times more likely to be murdered in the womb than a white baby. Since 1973, abortion has reduced, listen to this, has reduced the population, the black population, over 25%. We're wondering where our black folks are. They're not just only in jail, they're not even being a chance to be born. You know, at around about the turn of the 20th century, around about the turn of the 20th century, when blacks were coming up, that we were representing about 12%. Actually, we were representing about 19% in the early 20th century of the population of the United States of America. Whoa, it's kind of amazing that it was about that same time that the Margaret Sanger group and the group of eugenics discussed having Planned Parenthood, and their major topic, and this is not conspiracy theory, this is fact, was to target black folks. If you look at the Negro Project, or even if you look at a video called Maafa 21, you probably can catch it online, or you can definitely catch excerpts of it, was to destroy the black population, and it's no different today. Every 3 days, more African Americans are killed. Listen to this. Those of you that wants to, those of you that would like to, talk about the Ku Klux Klan. More black babies are killed by abortion than have been killed by the Ku Klux Klan in its entire history, recorded or unrecorded. To some point, someone says there's no need even for the Klan. Some even have attributed the name of Planned Parenthood, Klan Parenthood. It is what it is. Twice as many African Americans have died from abortion, twice as many, than from AIDS, accidents, violent crimes, cancer, and heart disease combined. Planned Parenthood operates the nation's largest chain of abortion clinics, with over 80% of them predominantly in minority neighborhoods. And they'll tell you that they're there for the health of the black woman, and that the woman ought to have free access to health care. It is no fantasy nor theory that their main objective is abortion. It's not health services. Health services can be generated from other organizations and institutions and clinics, and they are most definitely. But their number one actually tool is abortion, and also training and teaching, indoctrinating our young people that they don't have to actually have a child; they can abort it. I make no bones about it. I'm not anti-Planned Parenthood. It's just one of the most notorious hate groups in the world, because it hates life, and it masquerades that as a woman's choice. You know, it masquerades it as, and makes you believe that you're fighting for a woman's right, neglecting the right of that possible woman who's in the womb, even though she is a small woman, and yet have not opened her eyes in this world. She is a woman or a man. About 13% of American women are black, but they submit or make up over 35% of abortions. You say, well, you are pro-life. What about the life of a mother? What about rape? What about incest, when these cases are minute in comparison to over 93-95%? I think it's about 95% of all abortions is personal choice. The life. In and of itself, it wouldn't be as destructive if it was, something they were sincerely targeting. Sincerely petitioning. In and of itself, it wouldn't be as destructive, but it is more than destructive when they have purposely sought out to destroy us and given us no options. That is, they don't want to even give options. Hardly. Not like institutions which would give you options. They may not give abortion as an option, but they give you options. But their first option, or their first choice, is the destruction of children. That's their bread and butter. It's where they make the most money. And as that old saying goes, follow the money. I want to conclude this with a prayer and a word, because I got a little passionate, and I don't want my anger to consume me. I don't want it to consume me. The Bible says, "Be angry, but sin not." And I want to have a word. Father, in the name of Yeshua, Jesus, we need your hand. We need your help at this hour. There might be somebody that has listened to this whole video, and I'm asking that you touch their life and help us, Lord, to come to that unique prayer you gave your disciples, that we might be one, whole one, as you are one. And I'm asking that you would heal, for Lord, many who are deceived and possibly passionate about BLM and other movements. It's not necessarily that they are insincere. It may be deceit. It's deception. It's deception. Deception is easily done. It's easily done if we continue to look away. So Lord, open the eyes of the mind that we might, even myself, see clearly. And we ask it in Jesus' name, amen. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you had an opportunity to be here. Remember the book, Hosea 4:6. And I didn't point it out. I'm going to conclude with this. It said, "My people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge." What Andy Clark, Andrew Clark, what you say is the number one problem in our, since you don't believe that police brutality and tearing down statues is remnant of the of racist past is our number one problem. What do you think is our number one problem? I'm glad you asked. Number one problem in our black community is knowledge, or more specifically, identity of who we are. Now, I could say the number one problem is actually sin, and that would probably supersede that, and that does. But on a natural level, skill, on a natural side, just thinking that term, and if you'll tune in, you'll see the whole picture. It's we don't know who we are. Our identity was stolen. We have no collection of who we are. Not what we are, but who we are. And I'll talk about that later on another cast. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.